Hey there, it's Melanie. I am making a kind of incomplete thought video. I've been thinking a lot, given the season and the kind of spookiness and the chill in the air and the music I listen to this time of year, about just something about the types of things that I like. Probably starting, I don't know, I'd say my junior year of high school into my college years, I was interested in some kind of spooky-ish things, but I didn't like evil, dark horror stuff. I just liked it to be a little bit weird. It's almost like it borders on Uncanny Valley, but never quite makes you uncomfortable. It's a cozy, cold spookiness that makes me love Halloween. It's my favorite season. Thinking more about it and about these things that I love, I wanted to understand kind of why I like these things. I think this kind of fascination and interest in a darker story began with a series of unfortunate events, and I'm pretty sure that before I even read the books, unless the books were read to me, I watched the movie with Jim Carrey as Count Olaf. I actually still love that movie. It didn't hold up to the structure of the books, but as a tone, as a theme, as a vibe, it is dark and funny and serious as it needs to be. But it's not just that book series or that movie that inspires this interest, this like cold and cozy spookiness that really isn't hurting anything. There's a lot of media in my life, not just stories, that affect this in me. When I think of books other than a series of unfortunate events, I think of Coraline and The Graveyard Book, both written by Neil Gaiman. They're super beautiful stories, inspirational in their own ways, especially Coraline for a young girl like me. I think of all these middle grade ghost stories we would read. I love going in like the young adult middle grade sections and seeing like a black and white cover, a really simple story, a story involving bones or ghosts or stuff like that, because it never gets too much, but it's just perfectly dark, just perfectly spooky. Related to that, books like A Series of Unfortunate Events, like The Mysterious Benedict Society. I liked a mystery, I liked smart kids up against big bad guys. And those leaned away from spooky into quirky. I loved the quirky. I love the art style of those things, which kind of reminds me of like TV and movies. There's Tim Burton, the Coraline movie, Series of Unfortunate Events, both the TV series and the movie. I think of Over the Garden Wall, which is a beautiful series I highly recommend. Even something like Gravity Falls, which is goofy and funny and it has a mystery aspect, really drew me in. And I think like those TV movie type things I grew up with, I was really interested in. Some of the music I've listened to, and I think of that like when I mentioned my junior year and stuff, like I have a whole playlist called Holes that I will definitely link down below. It's a Spotify playlist of just music that I, drawn from like the Twilight soundtrack, that kind of vibe, the darker side of indie music. I think of Regina Spektor's music, especially her latest album recorded with a full live orchestra. The song specifically, The Trapper and the Furrier, inspired a whole short story I started writing when I was a freshman in college. Songs like Cemeteries of London by Coldplay, that entire album by Coldplay. Isolated piano, simple strings, an eerie resonant sound that's like you recorded it in a cave and it could have been made digitally, but it sounds like a ghost is singing. That was my, that was a vibe. It still is so beautiful, so haunting. And I think, honestly, what best describes the vibe, other than like Over the Garden Wall or A Series of Unfortunate Events, would be video games. I've recently been playing Hollow Knight for the past few months. It is so fun, challenging, awesome, whatever, but famous pretty much for music and its aesthetic and its lore. I think of Don't Starve, this video game my brother showed me that I honestly don't love to play because it stresses me out, and yet I love that vibe. Games like World of Goo and Little Inferno, made by the same creators, with a very similar vibe, where you're, using goo balls at their expense to build structures. I can't explain it. You should just play the game. Or, yeah, Little Inferno, which you're literally just lighting stuff on fire. And yet there is something else going on. There's theme, there is an aesthetic to it and a kind of vibe that I really dig. Games like Undertale, and even for me, Little Big Planet fits into this category. It leans into that quirkiness that still feels a little bit dark. I mean, these sack people could be creepy, but they're adorable. The music is perfectly quirky, and it's a very, I'd say, British game, and I love it. It's still, Little Big Planet 2 is still like up there on my favorite games. I still think it's probably my favorite video game. I like the story, I love the aesthetic, and I love the music. All of these things have great music, have a great tone, themes. They're very simple, very artistic. I was thinking about how I fit these stories, these pieces of media, in a similar category. I associate it with fall and its early sunsets and dark, dark mornings. It even reminds me of Halloween itself, going trick-or-treating and then driving to my grandma's house to have ham and bean soup in our costumes, which was delicious, and now that's all I want. But there's something else. There's a tone, there's a vibe. Not all of these things remind me of Halloween itself. Sometimes it reminds me of a feeling of isolation, and I think I really enjoy these things, especially the music, with other people. Don't Pass Me the Aux Cord this season. We're going to be listening to the Series of Unfortunate Events soundtrack by Thomas Newman. It's amazing. It rocks my world. It's so beautiful, and I'm very much inspired by it. But it's not really, something you share with other people. And I realized something that clicked when I thought about the music and I thought about video games. Thinking about Hollow Knight specifically, and many video games run this way, produce this feeling of intense loneliness. I think it's fair to say that a lot of us have felt lonely, not just recently, but our entire lives have pieces of loneliness. This is what I do with mine. I remember someone on like TikTok or something saying that maybe the reason you are drawn to darker media is because it's more familiar for you, you have a darker situation in life, which is a little sad, but I get it, And she said, this is why I fall asleep listening to true crime podcasts. I personally don't. Again, very sensitive, child and adult, but it makes sense, right? We're used to it. It's comfortable. My brain, I had horrible nightmares as a kid for years. I was constantly haunted by thoughts I didn't want that I recognized were probably anxiety about things going on in my life that I couldn't control. And my imagination was a bit too strong for me and carried me away. The nice thing about these stories is that they are very imaginative, dark, and yet none of them, except, side note, I have not finished a Series of Unfortunate Events yet. I don't know how it ends, so I'm not speaking to that. But a lot of these things don't end badly, I think of all these made-for-children books and movies and TV shows that are, they speak to the adult and to the adult artists who appreciate them, but at the end of the day, it's still made for kids, still marketed to kids, so it's not going to be too dark, it's not going to be too heavy, and yet you still feel the risk and the loneliness. And how do these stories do it? How do they produce such a weight of alone on our shoulders? I mean, movies and TV, their animation, the simplicity. I think of Over the Garden Wall. I think of their little songs, their little, characters, their cute faces, contrasted with these not so cute faces. It can be really dark and really beautiful and really, honestly, kind of goofy at the same time. I think of Tim Burton and the makeup done on these characters, their acting, their quirky ways, the types of stories he either creates or adapts. Things like The Corpse Bride, beautiful. I know a lot of my loved ones and friends don't like claymation, and I don't blame them. It can be creepy, but I really liked it, Again, it's the uncanny valley, or it's like the top of the hill before you don't go down into the uncanny valley. It's a place, and my brain lives there and thrives there and loves the stories that are produced in that realm. I feel like books do it really well, especially middle grade stuff, because again, it's not going to get too dark, it's not going to get too like evil, spooky, violent, but middle grade aged characters are often so fun and quirky. Like, this is why I love middle grade, because the kids are actually interesting. I think characters should be interesting so you can relate to the specificity of them, or at least want to be their friend and get to know them. Middle grade stories, TV made for kids, is interesting. These characters like things. They define themselves by their interests, and somehow you throw them and their quirky personalities in a difficult situation, and I love it. Yes, let's solve some mysteries with some kids. They're way more fun than adults that way. But then with that, with the children in the books and the middle grade age stuff, they're dealing with some very heavy things. Things that I might not have been dealing with exactly, but was definitely feeling similar feelings. Helps these kids understand it, and maybe the kid in me is still really appreciative of what these lessons are teaching me. I still tear up a little bit when I read Coraline. Coraline is alone. She solves her issues alone, and it tells young people, and at the time a young girl, me, that you can fight like demons, otherworldly beings, or your own issues and the dark things in your life by your own, skills and gumption and intellect. You can do it. And I mean, maybe that's sad that you should just fight things alone, but it still helped you feel like you were enough, that you could figure it out and get out of a situation. And I really liked that. I still do. It still means a lot to me. I mentioned briefly how music can do it with like a single piano in an echoey space where you could hear the hammers, playing. It's beautiful stuff. Or simple strings. It doesn't even need to be a minor key. Echoey vocals. Music that sounds like, again, produced in a cave. And I like it. I really like it. Feeling like these songs are coming from abandoned people, ghosts, and abandoned places. It makes me feel cold and yet cozy. I want to wrap myself up in a blanket and drink some tea and just listen to this music while I'm reading a book about a mystery that I can't solve, that's a little heavy but not too much. That's my thing. That's my vibe. And talking about video games, these are some of the loneliest, most isolated things that I can participate in. I don't love to play video games alone. I always like to watch someone play or have someone nearby, even if they're not watching me, even if we're not interacting with each other. I just like to sit and play a video game with someone else there. It's really nice and in a way comforting, because the game itself is almost too much. I'm almost too alone. It's almost too real, but not quite. It's the edge of the uncanny valley. It's the edge of loneliness. So maybe if I'm going to analyze the psychology of why I love these, why I care so much about them, maybe it's because I'm a bit lonely and I find company and also validation of that loneliness in these places, in these stories, and listening to this music. There's definitely strong nostalgia associated with them. I think of Little Big Planet and maybe the times I truly played it. I have this candle actually that I got like years ago, and I don't burn it anymore because it smells like a candle my mom had when I was playing Little Big Planet with my siblings on like an early cold Saturday morning, when it was like not quite snowing yet but freezing outside. Man, it's just, the nostalgia is so heavy, and it carries through to other things that are even a bit like it. I love the music that can evoke the somber, the negative and positive in a beautiful, sad thing. I respect movies and TV for creating visual masterpieces and tonal and thematic masterpieces. And think for books, how a book can feel right in your hands and help you create a friendship and a connection with a character, and then watch them be alone just like you are. I love it. I love these lonely characters. And I love the lonely kid in me who found interest in these types of things. I love video games. I know I talk about books a lot on this channel, but I like stories of all kinds. And if you're looking for a good story, then I should recommend the one I've talked about almost the most, Hollow Knight, because there's a lot of lore. There's a lot you don't understand right away, stuff you can guess at, but there's so many different types of characters, friend and foe and neither, and you don't know who to trust, and you don't know where to go, and you don't know how to get where you want to go, and you're lonely. You are alone, and you're solving problems, and isn't that just life? So maybe I just like life and the stories that help me feel validated in how difficult it is. I know this is a messy video. It's gonna be a little bit longer because I'm talking about something that I care about, that's on my mind, and I want to start a conversation. I would love to hear anything in the comments that remind you of these stories and this media, the music, all that stuff. I want to hear your thoughts. I've probably missed quite a few things that fit into this for me, but this is what I can think of. This is what's on my mind and in my life, and I'd really love to hear what any of you have to say. So if you want to comment either on this video or message me on Instagram, I'd love to hear from you. I will definitely be including my playlist down below as I am listening to it this cold season. And yeah, I'm going to go to a corn maze tonight, a haunted one. So wish me luck, and I will see you later. Thanks for watching.